Okay, this video is going to look at how America went into depression, and it's going to focus on the actual Wall Street crash and also other factors surrounding that, which would lead to America basically falling apart. So, background to the crash. At its peak in the summer of 1929, right before the stock market crash problems happened in the autumn, the American stock market had about 20 million people buying stocks and shares. Prices were at an all-time high, and worries started to kick in because the car industry started to tail off. If you remember, about 50% of Americans qualified for this $2,000 a year or more to be leading a comfortable lifestyle, but it left another 50%, such as farmers, such as black Americans, such as immigrants, such as workers in the old industries, that weren't in this bracket. And what you found is the car industry, maybe everybody who was going to buy a car had bought them, and the car industry starts to experience a slowdown, and this affected like the steel industry, for example, and people started to worry, experts started to worry if profit margins were going down, if people were shareholders that weren't getting out of it what they thought they were going to. So you start to see people looking to sell their shares. And by the time you get to the 19th of October, prices are falling, and 3.5 million shares are sold. And basically stock prices are being driven down, and it becomes a seller's market. Now, you've got to always bear in mind with the stock exchange that it's great having stocks and shares if someone wants to buy them at the price you want to sell them for. But if you can't sell them for a price that you want, you have to lower it. It's like selling anything else. Now, on the 21st of October, over 6 million shares changed hands. So there was over 6 million people buying and selling shares. There was a fall in prices, there was a rise in prices, there was a buyer's market still there. And the next day, the 22nd of October, you actually see the prices are rising again. Now, by the time you get to the 23rd, the last hour that day saw 3 million shares being sold, and they're looking for more buyers and people that buy stocks and shares. And by Black Thursday, as it was known, the 24th of October, 13 million shares were sold with no buyers around. So you've got a real problem starting to set in here. Now, the banks step in on the 25th because 25th of October, the bankers step in because, quite simply, the stock exchange business is supporting America, and the banking firms realise they have to keep this going. So they basically just bought shed loads of shares for above what they're worth to keep this cycle going. And the president recognised this. He was saying, oh well, everything's fine, it's secure, the country's got nothing to worry about. But by the 28th of October, 3 million more shares were sold in the last day. In the last hour of trading, 9 million shares approximately sold that day, and the banks could no longer afford to be buying them at above the value they were. People are panicking now, and by Tuesday the 29th, 16 million shares are sold with no buyers found. Now, if you watch the stock market or you use the app on your phone, you get your little ticker going across the bottom like Sky Sports breaking news. These ticker machines weren't there then, where you'd have their bar going across the bottom of your TV on like Bloomberg or something, and it was all printed off on like almost like till receipts coming off with your code and what your share prices were now worth. They broke. The machines broke because they couldn't keep up with the pressure they were being asked to work at. So there's a huge problem, and basically the crash occurs, and America's in trouble because, as I've said, this was a country where everyone was playing the stock market, from your stockbroker through to your granny or your granddad taking loans out of banks. Now, there's more to it than that, and one of the things that goes to it's overproduction. If you look at why America boomed, we looked at mass production, but overproduction is, if you look at it, when everyone wants a radio, or everyone wants a gramophone, or everyone wants a refrigerator, great. Things are being produced on the assembly line, they're being produced cheap, and the shelves are stocked. But how many people want to have these products? Is there always going to be a demand? Because 50% of America made over $2,000. But what about the other 50%? If you're struggling from day to day to get by, are you really going to buy a radio? Are you really going to go out there and buy a gramophone? Are you going to keep up with the latest fashions? No. Right? So company profits were starting to dip because these products weren't flying off the shelves anymore. The demand was no longer there. So there's a problem. Alright? And that was linking basically overproduction to the unequal distribution of wealth that was happening in America at that time, where you had 50% who were doing well and 50% who weren't. Were farmers going to buy these? Were black Americans going to buy these? Were workers in like the textiles industries where nylon had, was killing cotton down, where electricity was hurting the coal industries? Were immigrants going to go for these? No, because they couldn't afford it. You don't buy a radio instead of feeding yourself. So these products were left on shelves. You've also got the tariff policy comes back to bite America in the backside. If you remember, we looked at the Ford and Macumber tariff, and we saw how American industry was protected by putting taxes on foreign goods, so to encourage people to buy the American equivalent. Great, everyone does. But what it means is that when everyone had bought this, there wasn't going to be like the foreign industries going, oh, you stopped our market in America, if you reduced it massively, we can't sell our products there anymore. No problem, sell them in our country as well, we don't care. No, they retaliated. So foreign markets got American goods coming in, they taxed them, they did the same back. So what you found was 50% of America aren't going to buy these goods or can't afford to, but you can't sell them abroad like you'd want to either, because other countries had their nose put out of joint saying, oh, we can't sell in your country because of this tariff, so we're doing the same back to you. So that's what happened as well. And also, as I said about the stock market was being played not just by people who could afford to do it, but it was people who couldn't afford to do it. It became a national craze. So you had people going to banks speculating that stocks and shares were going to go up in value, and it was a get-rich-quick scheme where a bank would give loans out to people who wanted to buy stocks and shares because they're going to go up in price, they're going to go up in worth. You'll sell them, you'll make your money, you'll pay your loan back, you'll pay us the interest, and we are all happy. But when the stock market crash was going on, stocks and shares were no longer being sold at this extortionate rate. They were now being sold a lot less than what people had bought them for, so people could sell them. Well, these people who took loans out to buy these stocks and shares now had a problem, and their problem was they couldn't afford to pay their loan back. Right? So not only was it going to affect them, but it was going to affect the bank, and it was going to affect people's savings who were in the banks as well. Because in those days you didn't have your HSBC, your Lloyds, your Barclays, your TSB. Banks were small banks, one or two in a chain. So they were loaning out against people's savings, against people's investments. So even if you didn't play the stock market, you could have lost your money. And what you found was that banks had loaned out against people's money, thinking we'll get the money back because it's a can't fail, get rich quick scheme. And you also found people who had money in banks and investments wanted to get their money out, so they were going down and asking for it back. So the banks were going bankrupt, and the public had lost their confidence in them, and that was a massive problem. When that happens, there is a problem. Okay, thanks for watching.